You met someone 4 days ago, and you're already imagining your future together, already picturing what your wedding might look like, already convinced this connection is too rare and too perfect to be a coincidence. You've texted all day, shared things you've never told anyone, and some quiet part of you is already thinking, this one's different. This is the one. If that pattern keeps repeating in your life, fast, intense, all-consuming, and then either crashing hard or fizzling out just as quickly, there's real psychology behind it. And it's not that you're too much or moving too fast by accident. Researchers actually have a name for this exact experience, limerence, a term coined by psychologist Dorothy Tennov in the 1970s to describe an involuntary state of intense romantic obsession, distinct from healthy love, marked by racing thoughts about the person, a desperate need for reciprocation, and a nervous system that reacts to any small sign of interest, like it just won the lottery. And for a lot of people, limerence isn't random, it's a pattern rooted in exactly how connection worked, or didn't work, in childhood. Here's the mechanism behind it. When affection growing up was inconsistent, sometimes warm, sometimes distant, sometimes there, and sometimes suddenly withdrawn, your nervous system learned something specific. That connection is unpredictable. So when it shows up, you'd better grab it fast, because it might not last. Psychologists call this intermittent reinforcement, and it's the same mechanism that makes slot machines addictive. A reward that comes unpredictably is actually more compelling to the brain than a reward that comes reliably, because the brain starts chasing the uncertainty itself. So if love felt uncertain early on, your brain may have quietly wired uncertain and exciting together, which is exactly why calm, secure, consistent people can sometimes feel boring, while someone a little unpredictable, a little hot and cold, can feel magnetic, even when a part of you knows better. Here's what it actually looks like in practice. You meet someone, and within days, you're already fast-forwarding, picturing meeting their family, imagining what your life together would look like, building an entire relationship in your head before you actually know if this person is safe, kind, or even available. You mistake intensity for intimacy, assuming that because your heart is racing and you can't stop thinking about them, it must mean something real, when intensity is actually just your nervous system's alarm system, and alarm systems go off for danger just as easily as for genuine connection. You overshare early, revealing your deepest stuff on date 2, not necessarily because you're naturally open, but because closeness moving fast enough to outrun the fear that it might disappear, feels safer than closeness building slowly. And when there's even a few hours of silence, a slow text reply, a canceled plan, it can spiral into real anxiety, not because the situation is actually alarming, but because any gap in connection echoes the exact unpredictability your nervous system learned to fear a long time ago. It doesn't always look dramatic from the outside either. It's agreeing to plans you don't actually want, early, just to keep the momentum going. It's explaining away a red flag in week 1 because the chemistry felt too good to question. It's feeling oddly devastated by someone you've known for 11 days and being embarrassed by how much it hurts, because logically you know it shouldn't hurt this much yet, even though it genuinely does. It's the specific whiplash of going from "we're soulmates" to "I mean nothing to them" within the same week, based on nothing more than a slower reply time. It's mentally rehearsing conversations with someone before they've even happened, scripting how they'll respond, how you'll respond back, building an entire relationship in your head that the other person doesn't know exists yet. It's checking your phone every few minutes after a first date, not out of casual interest, but with the specific, tight-chested urgency of someone waiting for a verdict on whether they're worthy of continued attention. It's noticing, if you're honest, that the spark tends to show up strongest with people who are just slightly hard to read, and tends to fade fast with people who are warm, clear, and easy, and quietly wondering what that says about you, when really, it says something specific about what your nervous system was trained to chase. As an adult, this pattern tends to keep repeating, unless it's actually named, because from the inside, it doesn't feel like a pattern, it just feels like falling in love, every single time, which makes it genuinely hard to catch in the moment. Some people become serial fast fallers, moving from one intense connection to the next, mistaking the crash after each one for heartbreak over that specific person. When it's often withdrawal from the intensity itself, others swing the other direction after getting burned enough times, and start avoiding closeness altogether, treating any spark of real interest as a warning sign rather than a possibility, which trades one kind of pain for another. Neither extreme is a character flaw, Both are a nervous system trying, imperfectly, to protect you using the only blueprint it was ever given. This pattern also tends to leak into non-romantic relationships, though it's rarely labeled the same way. It can show up as instantly bonding with a new friend and feeling quietly crushed when they don't text back as fast as you do, or idealizing a new therapist, mentor, or boss within the first few sessions, certain this person finally gets you, before you've actually had the time to find out if that's true. It can even show up as attaching quickly to online communities or public figures, feeling a surprisingly intense sense of closeness to someone who has no idea you exist, because the fantasy of connection can feel almost as regulating as the real thing when your nervous system is starved for consistency. None of this is about being needy or dramatic, whatever old voice in your head might say. It's a nervous system doing exactly what it learned to do, reaching hard and fast for anything that resembles safety, because reaching slowly once felt like a risk it couldn't afford. Here's the more hopeful part, though. Limerence isn't a life sentence, and it isn't proof you're incapable of healthy love. It's proof your body learned to associate love with urgency, and urgency can be unlearned, with enough consistent, unremarkable, boring in the best way experiences to prove otherwise. So if this sounds like you, start here. First, build in an intentional pause before big emotional moves, sharing your deepest fears, saying, "I love you," picturing a future, not to suppress how you feel, but to check whether it's actually about this specific person or about the rush itself. A simple private rule some therapists suggest is waiting through at least a few weeks of real, varied interaction, good days and slightly duller ones, before treating a new connection as anything more than promising. Second, get curious about consistency instead of intensity. When you're evaluating someone, ask yourself not, "How obsessed am I right now?" but "How do I feel around this person on an ordinary Tuesday when nothing exciting is happening at all?" Third, when anxiety spikes over a delayed text or a quiet moment, try naming it out loud, even just to yourself. This is the old alarm system, not necessarily the truth about what's happening right now, because naming the pattern is often what finally starts to loosen its grip. And fourth, if this has been a repeating theme in your life, a therapist trained in attachment and nervous system regulation can help far more than willpower alone, because this isn't a discipline problem, it's a wiring problem. And wiring like this genuinely can change with the right kind of practice. You're not broken for falling hard and fast. You're a person whose nervous system learned that love has to be caught quickly, or it disappears. The good news is, real love doesn't disappear that easily. And once you learn to slow down enough to actually see who's standing in front of you, you get to find that out for yourself. Slowing down isn't a punishment, and it isn't proof that something is wrong with how you love. It's simply giving the quieter, steadier parts of a real connection enough time to actually show up, so that what you eventually choose is someone you know, not just someone you needed to feel okay.